Welcome back to the Nicnac Review. Today we're tackling the new Amazon series called Invincible. Let's dive in. Invincible is a cartoon based on the comic book of the same name, created by Robert Kirkman, who also did Walking Dead, so you know it's going to be good. So the show starts out in Washington, D.C. These two guys come up from the ground out of nowhere. I call them Thing 1 and Thing 2. I think it's pretty appropriate. Basically, one guy is like the original guy, and the other one's a clone, and they argue back and forth which one's the real one, which one's not. Like, oh, I'm the clone, no, you're the clone type of thing. It's actually pretty comedic, but they come out of the ground, and they just, like, have these big old guns, and they're ready just to attack. And basically, they tell each other, like, okay, we gotta not only capture him, but we gotta show them that he's helpless, talking about the president. So in come the Guardians of the Globe. I love these guys. I think they did a really good job, even though they are a Justice League knockoff. I think they did really well. These characters seem very original, regardless of their similarities with the Justice League. You basically have Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, The Flash, Martian Manhunter, and Green Lantern, and Aquaman. How could I forget? You have these characters coming in to save the day, just like the Justice League would, and that's what they basically do. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, here comes Omni-Man, basically the main character's father. Or rather, the main character, because, he does play a prominent role. So anyway, here comes Omni-Man to save the day, or rather help the Guardians of the Globe. But he didn't really help them. He did in the way of saving people's lives, but he kind of just was like, oh, well, you know what, I'm going to save this guy before you do, and Immortal kind of looks at him like, I would have got that one. I've got this. It's fine. What are you doing? Just help us. After the day is saved, Omni-Man flies home to his family. So you get to see the hero first, and then you get to see the regular person, even though he's not human. After the White House fiasco, the show starts with Mark, Omni-Man's son, who, he knows that he is actually half human and half Viltrumite. And I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Please correct me if I am. You learn that the son doesn't have any powers, even though he has the same blood as his dad. It's kind of a waiting game. Is he going to get powers? Is he not? Is he going to be human, even though he's half? Is he going to actually adapt to those powers, or is he just not going to develop powers at all? And then you see a nice little cutscene. You see where Mark actually learns that his dad is not, in fact, human, but a Viltrumite. Again, if I'm saying that wrong, please correct me. So he tells his son basically like where he comes from and what his race real intentions were before coming to Earth. Why did he come to Earth at all? It's a planet that has all the beings on their planet were the same. Like, in other words, they all had powers just like him, and they were all powerful. They basically had a utopia, and they were like, you know what? Let's share this throughout the entire universe. But in a sense, they were kind of ruling each planet they would go to. It's like, oh, here's our technology. Here's how to use it. But by the way, we're going to rule you. So for the most part, I think originally he went there to rule Earth. But then he eventually fell in love with Mark's mom. And that kind of changed him in a little bit, but I really don't think it changed him much. Again, this is coming from someone who is not an original reader of the comic book. After the father and son have their little talk, and basically Mark learns his true origin, if you will, he basically dreams of the day like, oh boy, I hope I can fly. I hope I'm strong. I hope I get all the powers that my daddy has. He really wants to be like his dad. And I can really relate to that because that's how I was when I was young. I always looked up to my dad, and I still do to this day. So it really has that father-son connection with later a little bit of a twist. It's like, oh look, it's a Mufasa Simba thing. Just wait. After a while, you see him at school, and of course there's a school bully, and he approaches him. He wants to talk to this girl, but the school bully just basically is like, oh no, that's my girl type of thing. It kind of gave me a little bit of Spider-Man vibes, but I like that. It's kind of common in comic books, but I really liked it. He's talking to this girl, and the bully just comes up to him and just starts wailing on him. And Mark really, really felt it. He got his butt kicked. But there's more to that later. So one day at work during the night, Mark is at his job, and he's actually taking out the trash. Well, he goes to lift up the dumpster and throw the garbage in, and whoosh, he throws the garbage basically in space. Looks at his hands and it's like, this is about time. I think that's how we would all feel if we ever develop power, especially like me. If I just started floating, I'd be like, yeah, okay, yeah, about time. Took you long enough. So obviously he was eager to tell his mom and dad. And when he does, his dad just looks at him and is like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, I threw garbage into space. I'm pretty sure. So he basically goes into training mode, is like, okay, look, you got my powers. We're going to start training you. You have to learn how to fly. You got to learn how to move. in the air. You got to learn how to take a punch. You got to learn how to throw a punch. So after a little while, you see him flying, you see him lifting things, and it's not necessarily a montage, but you get to see him like learning. You see him progressing, and then later they end up going to a place where they get his first costume, and that really gave me Spider-Man vibes. It gave me that Sam Raimi Spider-Man vibe, and I loved it because he's like, oh, I got powers, I can do this. He's kind of like rushing it, and he's really like, okay, I'm accepting this, I'm gonna own this stuff. Before he goes and gets his official suit, he just puts stuff together and goes out there and tries to save the day. And you see him struggle and stumble, that like kind of like Spider-Man did, and it was great. And it was nice. It was funny, but it was humble. He's like, oh man, I really want to do good. I know I can, but he can't yet. He's not there. Finally, you get the Sam Raimi final costume. And I keep calling it Sam Raimi. I know it's not. But you finally get the final costume and that comic book accurate costume. And it just shines. It looks really, really good. I must say, when he actually got his powers, it felt really organic. It felt natural in a way that somebody like us would feel when we got powers. Like if I got those powers, I would feel exactly the way he did. Now, eventually, he does become the superhero that everybody knows and loves, but every superhero has their first fight. And do they always win that first fight? I don't think so. Well, in this case, he did, but he struggled. And I like that he struggled. Winning the fight and saving the day, but not without maybe a casualty, a wounded hero or two. And you really see that, and it's something rare that you normally don't see in whether it be a live action comic book series or a comic book movie or an animated one as well. One thing I like is that, oh shoot, there's a pedestrian over there. I got to protect them. But then you kind of see him come to terms, much like Superman did at one point. I can't save everyone. And that is very realistic. And I love that part of the show. So fast forward towards the end of the episode, we see Darkwing, DW. I'm sorry, not sorry. Because when there's trouble, you call DW. Anywho, so we see DW going into his lair, and the rest of the Guardians are there, and they were like, so why did you call us here? And he's like, I didn't call us here. And immediately they knew, oh my gosh, this is a trap. What's going on? Who called us here? All of a sudden, you see Red Rush just like, he knows something is going on, and he sees it, but you don't know what he sees. And he just takes off after Immortal, and just like with the last nanosecond, pushes him away, out of the way of Omni-Man's fist just coming directly at him. And it's like, oh wow, missed him by that much. And then basically Omni-Man is somewhat exposed, and everybody's like, what are you doing here? And he doesn't really say anything, but they pretty much get the gist, like, oh my god, he's the one that called us here. He almost killed Immortal there, and he almost took his head off prematurely. And then all hell breaks loose. They just start wailing at him, and he's fighting back, and eventually Red Rush comes in, and he's hitting him, boom, 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 trying to go so fast, and then Omni-Man just whoosh, catches him by the head, or actually by the hand, and then puts his hands on his head and just squeezes his head until literally his brains explode. His head just caves in, and it's disgusting, and it's glorious, and it's amazing. After a pretty good fight, I mean, they did okay. I mean, they kind of didn't stand a chance, but they did a little bit of damage, whether he let them or not. But he slaughtered them brutally. I was like, oh my gosh, this is intense. Wow, I can only imagine what the comic book looked like. Oh, it's about like that? Okay. Kind of, I was like, oh man, I hate to see that they're dead, because I would have liked to see more of the Justice, the Guardians of the Globe, more, but I mean, they served their purpose. There was a reason that they existed. They did what they were supposed to do, and they were supposed to die. So I get it. But at the same time, I kind of wanted just to see them more fleshed out and learn a little bit more, have more of a connection with them, to be more like, aw. But no, we basically got the Guardians of the Globe. Yep, pretty much. After everybody's all basically dead, he is just covered in his blood and their blood. And he just looks at everything and then just collapses, and roll credits. Normally, I give any series, one season to really capture me, and this one did it in the first episode. I have nothing but good things to say, and I must say, I apologize for leaving anyone out, but the cast, absolutely amazing. You got Steven Yin, you got J.K. Simmons, you got Seth Rogen, you got Mark Hamill. That's just to name a few of them. You got Sandra Oh, you got Walton Goggins. I mean, come on. This is a huge cast, and I was very impressed. I started recognizing voices left and right, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how did they get this person? This person made this character that much better, in my opinion. And when I looked at the list of all the actors, I'm like, I love the show even more. I think it speaks for itself. I would give this show an A plus. This is absolutely a great show. It is not for kids, so parents don't think, oh, it's a cartoon. My kids can watch it. I wouldn't. All in all, I thought it was great. I can't wait to watch the next one. If you like what you've seen here, please like and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the notification bell at the top. Make sure to leave a comment down below and let me know your thoughts on the show. I really would like to hear it. And I am Clint the Nicnac, and I'll see you on the next one.